So the next person I'd like to go to is Anastasia Pozakov. Anastasia is in our legal practice and has been working a lot with clients as they start to reshape and rethink through their legal policies. Anastasia, what challenges are you seeing with clients as they navigate this new reality?
Well, John, the COVID-19 and national lockdown forced many employers to face the dreaded remote management of staff. Overnight, employers who traditionally managed performance and implemented discipline within the office had to learn how to do so remotely. This included managing working hours and time off, providing necessary home office equipment, and establishing connectivity, all within the confines of long-established and often codified human resource policies, which never anticipated a global pandemic and nationwide lockdown. And as employers have been forced into this new way of working, many have realized that their workforce structure is too rigid or too bloated, and as a result, and in many cases due to the damaging financial impact of the pandemic, many employers have had to restructure their operations and their workforce in order to create efficiency and cost effectiveness.
And I like to, so you kind of highlight two things, right? One is the kind of inefficiency kind of conversation around your workforce, and the other is around the rigidity of how we've potentially contracted or arranged those working relationships. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about how is that shifting in terms of the way we might contract with people going forward?
Well, John, I think we can anticipate many more local as well as global disruptive events to our traditional way of doing work. And as a result, I think it's going to be necessary for employers to recategorize the way that they engage staff. For example, employee to contractor or gig worker, in order to meet the operational requirements of the business, as well as take into account the economic interests of the worker.
And if you were going to give some advice to clients in terms of how they should be approaching this and rethinking the way they reshape many of their policies?
Yes, so definitely you need to review your employment contracts, you need to review your human resource policies and procedures in order to anticipate disruptive events, as well as accommodate remote work as well as varied working hours.
And I think what's interesting for me, Anastasia, is that actually this is often where this lovely idea about moving remotely and we're going to have a different way of working comes apart, right? When you actually get down to the nitty-gritty of having to look at the fine print. What kind of capacity and time do you think it's going to take before we start seeing that it become more of a permanent feature?
Well, we're already seeing it. A lot of employers are contacting us to advise on how do we change the policies and procedures, how do we provide clauses in employment contracts, in independent contractor agreements that provide for these unexpected events, for the requirement to maybe work from the office one day and then work from home the other day. So it's already coming in. I think that the pandemic and the lockdown has escalated and forced employers to think around their remotely working staff, around their shifting the structure of their workforce a lot quicker than they would have maybe thought about it before.
So Anastasia, just as last, thank you very much. Is any advice you'd like to give clients in terms of the best way to approach this reshaping and recontracting?
Well, certainly the one piece of advice is it's necessary to communicate with your staff. It is important that as you do effect changes, you do so having a mindset that you need to negotiate this with your employees. So for example, your KPIs may need to be reconsidered. How are you going to measure productivity and performance where your employees are no longer working a traditional 9 to 5 in the office? You need to also consider your occupational health and safety requirements. What are your obligations as an employer where the workspace has shifted from your office to your employee's home? And then obviously if you have any abuses of this new way of work, you need to ensure that you address them quickly and appropriately. So for example, if you have staff that are working from home but you're not able to access them, or you have suspicions that maybe they're abusing the time at home, you do need to address that quickly.
Are there potential increase or different types of abuses that you're starting to see coming through?
Well, I think the main issue is traditionally employers are used to seeing their staff physically in the office, and they can monitor both their behavior as well as their productivity. And now I think employers are having to create a bit more trust with their staff to make sure that as long as the product is being delivered when it should be, that how the employee maybe manages their time, their coffee breaks, their lunch hours, all of those things, that they trust their employees to do so. But that really is the main issue at the moment. Also, of course, with restructuring and discipline, how do you conduct that when someone is not physically in the office? And a lot of the queries have been around conducting disciplinary inquiries, having consultation processes around retrenchments and restructurings, all while doing it via Zoom or Skype, and making sure that you still follow the legal process, even though it's taken a different format.
So thank you very much, Anastasia. I think just in closing, if I'm hearing what you're saying, there's kind of a balance. Employees need to think about the contract on two levels. One, they need to communicate and engage with their people and teams to kind of humanize that experience and build a different level and a new type of trust as they manage this new reality. And secondly, they've got to spend time really thinking through some of the practical policies and how they apply those and how they evolve those to match a more potentially flexible way of engaging and working with people. Thank you very much.